Welcome to Money Matters, the podcast that focuses on how to use the money you have, make the money you need, and save the money you want. Now, here is your host, Ms. Kim Chapman.
Welcome to another edition of Money Matters. Today, we're going to talk about a subject that is often forgotten and overlooked, estate planning. And usually, the problem is that people make the mistake of thinking it's only for the wealthy, or that, hey, I can do it tomorrow because I'm young and I have plenty of time. But those are two myths. So if you were about to change the station, turn us off, listen, because no matter what your age, no matter what your income, no matter what assets you may have or not have, there's going to be some information you're going to learn today. And I have an expert here to guide us along the way. So returning back to the studio with Neighbors Wealth Management is our very own Jason Knapps.
Hello, how are you?
I am doing well, Jason. How about you?
Doing good.
So, Jason, this is his first time back in the studio since we've been on YouTube. So I've been fussing at him, telling him it's been far too long since he's been in here. So I'm going to keep him in here for a while. So let's sit back, relax, and see what he has to say.
All right.
So let's get started. What is estate planning in a nutshell?
Well, estate planning, very simple, is what do you want to do with your stuff? Okay, a lot of people accumulate things over life. And they want to leave that to someone that they love, okay? But not just that. Also, estate planning is what do you want to do with your affairs if you're not able to take care of yourself because of maybe a car accident or dementia or so forth. So it's not just for the wealthy. It's not just for someone that accumulates a lot of stuff. When we think about estate planning, you think of the movies where they bring someone in an office with a lawyer and so forth, and they're divvying out the assets. That's not necessarily what estate planning is. Estate planning is basically we have some assets, or we have property, we have cars, we have things that we've accumulated over time, and we want to make sure that that goes to the proper people.
Yeah. And really, in a nutshell, it really makes the process when your loved one has to deal with the loss, it can make the after process so much more easier because you're really just declaring what your wishes are, whether it's a brand new Mercedes or whether it's a beat up piece of anything in the backyard. It's so much easier if you've declared what you want to happen to that property, right?
Absolutely. And it can be small things. I've seen families argue over the smallest things that you would never think to just let someone know this is who I want to have this, and usually you need to write it down so that we have it documented and so forth.
Yeah. And if you're even thinking right now that you don't have anything, I guarantee you, if you do like I do, when my husband said, hey, we need to make a will, I was like, we don't have anything. We have a house, simple
Right.
as that. And then when I really started looking at, we have titles to cars and things, the list was longer than I actually imagined. So again, don't fool yourself into thinking because you're not wealthy, because you don't have millions of dollars in the bank that you don't need it. So let's talk about what are some of the key documents everyone should have in place, regardless of their age, regardless of their income.
Well, I think the most popular document everyone hears about is the will. Okay, you want to go to a lawyer, you want to write up a will. I mean, that's pretty common. But other documents that you want to make sure that you have that people don't think about are power of attorneys. Okay. Durable power of attorney. So who do you want to appoint to handle your financial affairs if something happens to you and you're not able to cognitively make that decision, because of maybe a wreck of injury or dementia or so forth? Who's going to make those decisions for you? Who are you going to appoint for that? Also health situations where what if I got into an accident? What would my wishes be? We don't want to think about those things, but But what would your wishes be if someone had to make a very, very important decision? Okay, and as well as beneficiary designations. We all have, when we start a job, we have IRA accounts, we have maybe a pension account, we have life insurance accounts. So who do you have listed as those beneficiaries? That's all part of the documents that you're going to be needing.
And for individuals that may already have those documents in place, how often should that be reviewed?
It's probably a good rule of thumb. Every 3 to 5 years, you want to review those documents. But in addition, when you have life-changing events, you definitely want to review those documents. Things like divorce, things like the loss of a child or a loved one. Those are those important life-changing events that, hey, it's time to make this review, or maybe changing jobs, things like that. Happens all the time. Someone will get a divorce, change jobs, forget about an old retirement plan that they had before, and never make those changes on their beneficiary designations. So, every so often you do need to review that.
So aside from people assuming that you need to be wealthy to do estate planning, what are some other myths that are out there about estate planning?
Well, I think we discussed the first one, that you have to be super rich. I mean, that's the biggest myth out there, of course. But also, a lot of younger people think, oh, well, I'm too young to worry about that. And of course, when you're younger, you feel like you're indestructible.
That's right.
So
I will
nothing's
get
gonna
to
happen to
retirement
me.
in about 50 years. And whoop, you go to sleep and wake up and it's like, time for retirement.
Yeah. So I think even someone that is very, very young, they need to be thinking about it. Okay. Also, other things is, oh, well, the state's going to provide that for me. I don't really need to worry about that. Well, you want to think about that before you just go through without having a will, because there are certain situations where it may not end up the way that you like for it to end up. So I personally wouldn't want the state providing my will for me. Okay.
All right. So definitely when you have a large family or even a small family, but what about people without kids? Do they still need to make these same preparations?
Absolutely. I mean, probably more so, because it gets a little more complicated as who's going to receive those funds if you don't have a will in place. So if there's certain charities that you want to give to, or there's a certain individual that you want to leave some of those assets to, that's not going to happen if the state does it. You're going to get some long lost cousin that maybe you really don't keep in touch with, and they're going to receive those funds. So it's very important, no matter who you are, to really have that plan set forth.
Are there situations where maybe estate planning is not necessary?
I can't really think of any. No, not off the top of my head. I mean, I guess if it was someone that says, you know what, I don't have anything that I want to leave to anybody, and I don't really care one way or the other, then I guess that would be the situation where it'd be okay.
And I always like to use the quote, it's better to have something and not need it than to need it and not have it,
That's
because
right.
of course we can't dig you up and say, hey, can you sign this for me, right?
Right,
So
exactly.
we talked a little bit about life stages, getting married, getting divorced, but let's talk about maybe somebody's life stage at age 20 versus age 50.
Yeah. So when you're in your 20s and 30s, of course, that's when you first want to start on those beneficiary designations and things like that. And then when you get to the 30s and 40s, you start having children and a house and mortgages. And then you kind of start thinking about, okay, maybe who's going to take care of my kids in the event that something happens to me? So those are when you need to start thinking about, do I need a power of attorney and so forth, and really start digging a little deeper into it. And of course, when you get closer to retirement age and you're in your 50s and so forth, people start thinking a little bit different. They start thinking more along the lines of, man, I really want to leave this to my kids. What's the most efficient way I can give this to my kids and not have all these tax implications and things like that? So things change as you get older, of course, and your priorities kind of change a little bit as far as what you want your assets to do.
Absolutely. So, Jason, how do we get started? I mean, if somebody's listening and they're thinking, okay, yeah, I need to get this off of my to-do list, where do they start?
I think the first thing is you need to start by writing down all your assets. What are the things that are most important to you that you want to leave? What are some of my liabilities? How do I want that cleaned up in the event that something happens to me? Start listing out the people that you really want to share these assets with, and as well as start thinking about the people that you want to handle your affairs in the event that you can't handle your affairs. Write it all down on paper. Talk to a financial advisor. I can't tell you how many people come into my office and we have these conversations. We talk it through. And once we talk it through, you have a better idea of what it is. You don't want to just walk into a lawyer's office and say, I need I need to write up a will. You want to have that plan before you go in so that when you walk in, you kind of have a good idea of what you're looking for.
So, and that kind of leads me to my next question, because I'm sure, somebody might be Googling online, wills.com,
Hmm.
So what's the difference between me going and doing it online versus actually setting up a meeting with a financial advisor?
Well, I think it's like anything in life, you can always do it cheaper. You can always go online and pull the documents and do it yourself, but you're not going to get that customization that you're going to get if you walk into a lawyer's office. They're going to cover those little nuances that you might not have thought about, just that little extra step that can go a long way sometimes, So as always, you're going to get what you pay for, So, that's the way it is.
And maybe just to kind of bring it home, can you share maybe some nameless stories of instances where you've run into individuals that did not do this step, did not have that will, did not have any type of estate planning, and what that nightmare could potentially look like?
Oh yeah. The bad stories. The bad stories are usually when we have divorced families and we have multiple kids involved, um, and it becomes a mess if it's not spelled out because you'll have one child that was dad's stuff, one child no that was mom's stuff, that was not mom's wishes, and it just gets dragged on and nobody wins. Nobody wins.
Any good success stories you can
Oh,
share with us?
absolutely. I mean, the biggest success story is, and we have them all the time, is when a client comes in and they just lost one of their mother or their father, and it's a bad time for them. And when everything is in order and is in place and it's easy, and we get the paperwork done and it's very, very simple, and they have those assets, and that's the last thing they want to think about. They're grieving at the same time they have to handle these financial affairs. And when it runs smooth, that's a success story. When everything runs smooth and they can move on with their life, and that part is just, a little bit extra that's out the way. You know.
Sounds like a really, really good thing to have. Is it time consuming? I know that it's going to be a case by case, but I'm just thinking in terms of myths. People are thinking, "Oh, I don't need it," but also it just sounds like it can be intimidating.
I think so. I think the biggest part is nobody wants to think about what happens to me if this happens and so forth. So it's emotionally draining, I think, more than anything. As far as time consuming, no, it doesn't take a lot of time. We can handle a will within an hour, if we really have our ducks in a row. But as far as I think the emotional part is the hardest part to get over. How do I thinking it through and going through that whole process of who wants to get what and so forth.
So you mentioned before, the first thing to do is to sit down and look at a list of your assets. Anything else that you recommend consumers look at before they would even schedule an appointment with a financial advisor to maybe minimize being overwhelmed? Or is it something that you just really break down and make really simple when they come into the office?
I think it's a combination. I think over time it evolves, especially in my relationship with clients. On our first meeting, when we start to we start talking about getting to know each other, we don't get into the whole dynamics of their family and so forth. That kind of comes over time, and as time comes on, I start to realize who their loved ones are, who's most important, and then that's when we have those conversations, and it gets personal, and it evolves, it changes over time. So but I would say what to get together. I think the biggest thing is those assets, those liabilities, those wishes, those people that are really close to you that you care about.
And for those meetings, who should be involved?
Well, I always recommend, and it doesn't usually happen initially, but I always recommend that, and most of my clients, to bring their kids in with them, bring in some of the heirs that are going to be their beneficiaries, so that we can have that conversation. These are some of, and you don't have to disclose all the accounts that they have, but it is a good idea for them to meet me so that they know who they're going to deal with in the event something happens to their parents. Okay. And it just makes things easier to know that we've already met if something does happen, so that they know exactly who they're seeing and what to expect, and there's no intimidation or anything like that.
So really just that simple. Make that call, make that appointment, get started, because time is going to go by faster than you imagine, right?
That's right.
So how can they contact you if they want to learn more, if they're ready to go ahead and get that estate planning started?
they can contact us at Neighbors website through neighborswealthmanagement.com. Also, you can email me, Jason, at neighborswm.com, and our direct line is area code 225-819-5790.
All right. Wasn't as painful as you thought, right?
And they can text me as well. You can just simply send a text and say, hey, I'd like to set up an appointment with you. And you can text that number and we'll get back with you.
All right. Give it to them one more time.
225-819-5790.
All right, Jason. Thank you so much for sharing this good information. Hopefully it will help some people get that motivation they need to go ahead and get that estate planning started.
Thank you.
It's time for Blueprint Building Blocks. Small changes that lead to big financial wins. Let's stack up for success.
Start with the basics. Make sure you have a will, a power of attorney, and healthcare directives in place. Review your beneficiaries. You want to check your accounts, insurance policies to ensure they reflect what your current wishes are. Remember, you want to review those things periodically. Update after life events. Marriage, divorce, children, retirement are all times to revisit your plan. And of course, don't wait until it's too late. Estate planning isn't about age or wealth. It's important to just be prepared.
That's a wrap on today's Blueprint Building Blocks. Stay on track with your financial journey. Subscribe to the Money Matters podcast and visit neighborsfcu.org/financial wellness for more tools to help you build a strong financial future.